In these last final videos on unity, let me share what I believe as MM Lee's parting gift to Singapore. Besides gaining for us our independence, I believe the parting gift for Singapore is how MM Lee galvanized the country, young and old, into remembering the ideals he stood for. And that was enshrined in our Pledge and National Anthem, of which I will elaborate more at the end of this video. First of all, let us be reminded of why and how we must maintain unity and harmony, to the point in the article written by Mr. Tommy Cole on 1st April. In 1965, newly independent Singapore was faced with enormous challenge of uniting this microcosm of humanity into one nation and maintaining peace and harmony among the different races and tribes. The prospect were not promising because a year earlier, on July 21, 1964, during the celebration of Prophet Muhammad's birthday, an incident turned into riots between the Malays and the Chinese. 23 people were killed and 454 were injured. Later that year, on September 2nd, another riot occurred. This one killed 13 people and injured 106 others. These are the two racial riots of 1964 were shared into the collective memories of Singaporeans who were determined to prevent their recurrence. People like Amos E. and his naive fans must be reminded not to play with fire, ever, and making social and religious ticking bombs. Let me sum up the key point that MM Lee and his cabinet has taken to secure racial and religious harmony. They installed, firstly, equal protection and non-discrimination, meaning all people are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law. Secondly, Presidential Council for Minority Rights. Now, the Council has the power to scrutinize all proposed legislation in order to ensure that it does not discriminate against any minority. Thirdly, ethnic quotas. This is a policy encouraging racial integration, harmony, and preventing racial enclave in the HDB. Fourthly, national service. It plays a very important role where it helps comrades of different races to train and live together. Fifthly, racial harmony days. Every year, our students in all schools commemorated the 1964 racial riots by dressing up in traditional costume. 6. Meritocracy. This is a system to ensure to minorities that they have equal opportunity to compete with others, regardless of race, language, or religion. 7. We use English as a unifying language of instruction in school, business, and administration. 8. At least one candidate in every GRC must belong to a minority race. This safeguards multiracial representation in Parliament. To most of us, one of MM Lee's legacy is social integration. While MM Lee died in peace, with satisfaction knowing that there is an increased integration. But MM Lee always maintained that the true test of whether people are race blind would be during crisis, when one's life and one's survival of one's own family were at stake. Yes, we have modernized our country from third world to first world, but we must remember what he said once again. we must get real because we are still a society in transitions. Singapore is a very unique society. To most Westerners and people like arrogant Amos E., who try to parrot the message of civil liberty and worst of all try to ape them, they are completely wrong. If you have heard and read what they say, it is as if Singapore is such an oppressive and unhappy state, like North Korea. But virtually all Singaporeans who travel outside our country long quickly to come back. Now, if we are such an oppressive place, we should be escapists like the North Korean. But this is home, and we are free to roam. The reason why Singapore has some restriction on press freedom is because we have two racial religious riots. Listen to what Mr. Kisha had to say.
The reason why Singapore has restrictions on press freedom is precisely because of the 1964 ethnic riots that Singapore experienced. We've seen in many other countries, press freedom, like in Rwanda, leads to hate speak against minorities. We want to ensure that that doesn't happen in Singapore, and therefore there are these restrictions on press freedom in Singapore. But on the question of civil liberties, there's a very important point that Americans should bear in mind when they speak about civil liberties. One of the big shocks that the world experienced after 9/11 was when they watched America, the world's most advanced, open democratic society, walk back from some civil liberties as soon as they began to feel insecure. And because they were frightened of terrorists, they said, I'm happy to give up my privacy. Come have surveillance cameras everywhere. I'm not worried. I want my safety and security. Now, if America, the world's most powerful country, is prepared to give up some of its civil liberties in exchange for security, right? Then you begin to understand why smaller and much more vulnerable states like Singapore have also developed a compact where the government has said, okay, we'll give up some of our civil liberties, we'll give up some of our press freedom, but continue to keep this place peaceful and prosperous and strong.
Now for today onwards, when we stand and sing our national anthem, marilah kita bersatu dengan semangat yang baru. We should sing with the newfound meaning of let us be united with the new spirit. We live in a troubled world. Look at Rwanda, or nearer to us, Myanmar or the Rakhine State. In the name of civil liberty and free speech, it led to hate speak against the minorities. We are fortunate that Lee stood absolutely strong in his principle. Now, however imperfect as a human being he might be, nobody is perfect. He is a perfect example of imperfection. But through Lee and the old guards, we are very fortunate to have enjoyed 50 years of racial and religious peace and harmony. We must treasure this precious achievement when we sing Majulah Singapore again. Thank you, Lee. As we watch on television, the crowd in the hall and outside singing Majulah Singapore, reciting Singapore Pledge, and for the last 7 days, having given us this new meaning and renewed spirit of unity, which we cannot take it for granted. For these lofty ideals and noble aspiration expressed in the pledge, we will continue to safeguard what had been built on the foundation Lee and the cabinet have laid for a prosperous and secure future. We will move on and stay ahead. For this, I know for sure, we are beginning to write the next Singapore story. Thank you.